Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you're very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat. Welcome to June and to another History News Roundup video. There is a playlist of my previous Roundup videos that this one will be added to and that I will leave linked in a card and in the description box, because we do have some updates to previous headlines in today's video. So I'm hoping that that playlist will make it easier to reference back if you should choose to do so. There has been a lot of Tudor news this month, so we will be pretty 16th century heavy in today's video, and I hope you will enjoy it. With all that being said, let's jump into the history news from May. The fate of the Benin Bronzes has been something we have discussed on this channel in our monthly news roundup videos, and it will certainly be an ongoing story for us to keep an eye on going forward. Last month, ArtNet published this article, which explains that, quote, "There are some 160 institutions holding Benin Bronzes, a term for an array of pieces that span intricate bronze plaques, carved wood and ivory objects." The article goes on to state that ArtNet News reached out to 30 museums known to hold Benin Bronzes to ask for an update on their position on restitution and the status of objects in their collection. The rest of the article deals with the museum's responses. We are given the number of Benin Bronzes held by each one, their position on restitution, the status of restitution requests or returns, and the initiatives of which the museum is a part. These initiatives include, for example, the Benin Dialogue Group, Digital Benin, and the Commonwealth Association of Museums. The responses published in this article come from the British Museum in London, the Veltman Museum, Vienna, Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology, Cambridge, UK, Oxford University's Gardens, Libraries and Museums, National Museum Scotland in Edinburgh, the Horniman Museum in London, the National Museum of Ireland in Dublin, the Museum of Anthropology at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, the Museum of Cultures in Basel, the National Museum of African Art at the Smithsonian in Washington, DC, the Glasgow Museums in, unsurprisingly, Glasgow. They report having had, quote, 9 repatriation requests, 6 of which have been successful. We also have responses from the Cleveland Museum of Art, the Royal Africa Museum in Belgium, and the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, Canada. It will be very interesting to see how this all plays out in the long term, and what effect, if any, it will have on the status of other contested collection items around the world. Last month we learned of the discovery of those Medici frescoes at the Uffizi Museum. The museum was able to reopen to the public on the 5th of May 2021, having undergone a massive renovation. 22 new rooms have been opened on the ground floor and basement, and there are 13 new exhibition spaces on the first floor. Works of art are being displayed, we are told, behind, quote, state-of-the-art, non-reflective glass, allowing visitors to get close without triggering alarms. Staying with the Uffizi Gallery, the following headline also caught my eye. The Uffizi Gallery just sold a Michelangelo NFT for $170,000 and now is quickly minting more masterpieces from its collection. Well, what might an NFT be, thought I. Ah, a non-fungible token? Well, that clears things up. So I did some Googling, and I'm going to do my best to explain non-fungible tokens as I understand them, which isn't very much. It's my understanding that a Bitcoin is a fungible token because one Bitcoin is the same as another when compared. The encrypted I think, Michelangelo is non-fungible because it's a one-off, even if more than one NFT of a work has been produced. The example of high-value collectible items like trading cards is being given. I do believe that it gives the owner some rights to use the digital image. Maybe. They seem to be being invested in because of their perceived resale value, I think. One article did connect the market for NFTs to the so-called tulip mania, about which I have made a video and which I will leave linked. I'll be honest, I don't think I really get it. If anyone could provide greater context, I would be much obliged. In particular, I'd be really keen to know what the appeal of paying for / owning an NFT is. Help me understand, please. Staying with news headlines about paintings. Next up, we've got a news story about a miniature by Hans Holbein that is held in the Royal Collection. The art historian Franny Moyle argues that this miniature, believed to have been created in around 1540, which has long been connected, if only as a possibility, to Catherine Howard, may actually be of her predecessor as Henry's wife, Anne of Cleves. Moyle argues that the decision to mount the work on a 4 of diamonds playing card was a coded reference to Anne as the fourth wife. However, this is potentially a risky choice, as Henry had annulled both his first marriages, making Anne his second wife, at least until that marriage was also annulled. Further, Moyle is quoted as stating, "These little miniatures were mounted on playing cards. Holbein didn't do anything without meaning something. For example, he put the ace of spades on the back of the miniature of Thomas Cromwell, Henry VIII's principal advisor, which seems pretty pertinent for a man who would call a spade a spade. That Erasmus had coined that very phrase might not have been lost on either of the men. Holbein's portrait of the Lord Chancellor's wife, Elizabeth Audley, is mounted on the Ace of Hearts, as a new bride. So the 4 of diamonds is arguably significant. I would have been quite miffed if it had been the 3 of Hearts. The necklace on the sitter, thought to have belonged to Jane Seymour, would have gone back into the collection of Queen's jewels, so it marks the lady in the portrait out as royal. In 1540, that could have either been Catherine Howard or Anne of Cleves. Moyle also questions the potential age of the sitter, arguing that she looks more consistent with a woman in her 20s, as Anne was, rather than one in her teens, as Catherine was. Probably. She believes that the 1539 Holbein portrait of Anne is of the same woman that features in this miniature, and that it was produced at the suggestion of Anne or Cromwell in an attempt to salvage the failing fourth royal marriage. No doubt Moyle's thesis will be fully expanded and explained in her new book, The King's Painter, The Life and Times of Hans Holbein, that was published by Head of Zeus on the 27th of May. Next up, a reminder to make sure your filing system is ironclad, if ever there was one. A set of Viking human remains, now thought to belong to an older, wealthy and important man, were misplaced at some point in the 20th century. Last month, it was reported that these remains, thought lost, had been found in the archives of the Museum of Denmark in Copenhagen. The confusion about their whereabouts apparently stems from them being mislabelled before being placed into storage. It makes me wonder what else might be hiding in archives around the world, mislabelled, misplaced, and waiting to be uncovered. When Henry VIII's favourite warship, the Mary Rose, sank during the Battle of the Solent in 1545, many of the crew went down with the vessel. Trapped below deck and beneath the defensive anti-boarding netting that is thought to have covered the top deck. The remains of the ship, her crew members, and numerous other artefacts were recovered from the water in 1982. A new study has analysed some of the human remains from the wreck in order to uncover their ancestry, where they grew up, and what they ate during their lives. According to NBC News, quote, "At least 3 of the 8 crew, among them a royal archer, may have come from warmer, more southerly climates than England, such as Iberia and North Africa. And although the remaining 5 crew members were likely to have been brought up in Western England, further analysis suggested that at least one of the men was of African ancestry." Dr. Alexandra Hildred, head of research at the Mary Rose Trust, argues that from this small sample, it is feasible that within the crew of 500, a similar distribution of sailors of foreign heritage might be expected, namely around a quarter. She explains that she believes that these findings also show, quote, "that it was probably normal to have a multi-ethnic crew." These findings form the basis of the exhibition called The Many Faces of Tudor England at the Mary Rose Museum in Portsmouth, which reopened on the 17th of May. There is also an online virtual version of it, which I will of course leave linked in the description box, alongside all the relevant article links. In last week's video, I was chatting with the lovely Lauren from Lauren Learns History, and I was also part of a video on her channel that was filmed at Strawberry Hill House in Twickenham. It is to Strawberry Hill House that we turn for our next history headline, as it now displays a 1561 portrait of Catherine de' Medici and 4 of her children. This is somewhat of a homecoming, as the painting was once owned by Horace Walpole, the son of Britain's first Prime Minister and the man who built Strawberry Hill House into the Gothic fantasy palace that it is today. In the video on Lauren's channel, we are filming in front of this masterpiece, and my character is encouraging her to clean it with a potato. The painting has, according to The Guardian, been saved for the nation through the Acceptance in Lieu scheme, administered by the Arts Council to settle £1 million worth of tax. Catherine is shown with her arm around and hand in hand with Charles IX of France, who had been crowned king in 1560, the year before this painting is finished. He was 10 years old, and his mother was his regent. She is showing herself to be his protector, who will put her arm around him, and his advisor, able to lead him by the hand. The other children in this close and clearly related familial group are Henry, Duke of Anjou, the future Henry III, Marguerite de Valois, the future Queen of Navarre, and François Hercule, Duke of Anjou and Alençon. Strawberry Hill House reopened to the public on the 17th of May, with this painting being on show for visitors. A study of 143 sets of human remains buried between the 6th and 16th centuries in Cambridge, England, seems to be revolutionising our understanding of medieval cancer rates. Livia Gershon, writing for SmithsonianMag.com, explains that, quote, "Conventional wisdom has long held that cancer rates in medieval Europe, before the rise of industrial pollution and tobacco smoking, must have been quite low. But a new study suggests that 9 to 14% of medieval Britons had cancer that had spread to the bone when they died." While those involved in the study acknowledge that the sample size is relatively small, the local area which this burial ground served for many centuries was inhabited by people across the social spectrum. There was a hospital, an Augustinian friary, and homes for the rich and poor. The lead author of this new study, Piers Mitchell, states that it's possible they actually undercounted the number of cancer cases among the bodies studied, because they did not analyse all of the bones in each skeleton, and they discounted bones with damage that could have been caused either by cancer or other sources, like bacterial infections and insects. Co-author of the paper, Jenna Dittmar, explains, "Until now it was thought that the most significant causes of ill health in medieval people were infectious diseases, such as dysentery and bubonic plague, along with malnutrition and injuries due to accidents or warfare. We now have to add cancer as one of the major classes of disease that afflicted medieval people. These findings help to expand our understanding of cancer, and so, one hopes, they will only serve to assist those who seek to combat, treat, and prevent it today. There is a new temporary exhibition at the British Museum, which opened on the 20th of May and will close on the 22nd of August. It's called Thomas Becket, Murder and the Making of a Saint. The exhibition looks at the responses from across Europe to the murder of Archbishop Becket, which took place in his cathedral at Canterbury in 1170 and was perpetrated by some of King Henry II's knights. Among the numerous exhibits on display is a font from a rural parish church in Sweden that was carved by a local stonemason by the name of Tove. The font had stood in its Swedish church for 850 years, before being, I assume, temporarily loaned to the British Museum. In August, it will go back to being used to baptise the infants of Lingsjö once the exhibition closes. The font, according to Guardian writer Esther Adley, depicts the murder in a series of vivid scenes, including, highly unusually, an image of the king giving his soldiers explicit instructions to kill Becket. In case of any doubt, the stonemason has included Henry's name. I think this exhibition sounds fascinating and certainly plan on checking it out myself. The Cerne Abbas Giant has undergone 12 months of scientific analysis to finally reveal his likely age. He has been cared for by the National Trust since 1920 and is Britain's largest and best known chalk hill figure. I'm trying really hard to avoid making a bunch of smutty jokes here. The Trust website says that, quote, generations have speculated about the age and meaning of the club-brandishing giant hewn into a Dorset hillside. Was he a depiction of the legendary demigod Hercules, an ancient fertility symbol, or even the soldier and statesman Oliver Cromwell? Another theory holds that the figure was carved around the body of a giant who was slain by local people after he terrorised the countryside. Yep, those are the topics that generations of people have been fixated on. Sure. Back to being a grown-up. The scientific explorations on the giant appear to date the figure to between 700 and 1100, making him a Saxon chap. National Trust senior archaeologist Martin Papworth explains that this probable Saxon date places him in a dramatic part of Cerne history. Nearby Cerne Abbey was founded in 987 AD, and some sources think the abbey was set up to convert the locals from the worship of an early Anglo-Saxon god known as Hael or Haleth. The early part of our date range does invite the question, was the giant originally a depiction of that god? It is also thought that the giant was lost and forgotten for a considerable period before being rediscovered and rechalked, perhaps in the 17th century. The National Trust have a fly-through video showcasing the Cerne Abbas Giant that you can enjoy on their website. That will, of course, be linked below. Traces of beeswax have been located by archaeologists from Goethe University in Frankfurt and chemists from the University of Bristol in England on pottery fragments from the Nok culture of central Nigeria. The beeswax found on these fragments is now the earliest direct evidence of honey being collected in Africa. It's proof that people were eating honey in sub-Saharan Africa 3,500 years ago. Katharina Newman, an archaeobotanist on the project, has wondered if it might be possible to push that date back further still. She asks, the oldest pottery on the continent is about 11,000 years old. Does it perhaps also contain beeswax residues? Here's hoping those investigations might take place soon. What is being described as an accidental find of 250 rock-cut tombs has been made near Sohag, Egypt. Some of the graves discovered are said to be 4,200 years old, ranging from the end of the Old Kingdom, which was around 2200 BCE, to the end of the Ptolemaic period in 30 BCE. It is thought that due to the small size of these tombs, compared with those reserved for members of the royal family, these may have been burial sites for the non-royal members of the society, and thus provides insight into how ordinary Egyptians lived during this period. 6 Roman frescoes that were stolen from the walls of 2 villas close to Pompeii between the 1970s and 2012, with the intention of exporting them to paying collectors in the United States, Switzerland and England in the 1990s, have been recovered and returned to the Pompeii Archaeological Park. On the 19th of May, the anniversary of the execution of Anne Boleyn, research was published relating to the discovery of inscriptions in the Book of Hours prayer book that, according to tradition, Anne Boleyn carried with her to her execution in 1536. The book is now held at Hever Castle. The inscriptions were discovered by Kate McCaffrey, her former steward at Hever Castle, who studied the Hever Books of Hours as part of her Masters in Medieval and Early Modern Studies at the University of Kent. The secret inscriptions are names that had become concealed and which were only found by placing them under ultraviolet light. The names found led McCaffrey to believe that the book was handed down the female line of a collection of interrelated Kentish families. She states that it is clear that this book was passed between a network of trusted connections, from daughter to mother, from sister to niece. If the book had fallen into other hands, questions almost certainly would have been raised over the remaining presence of Anne's signature. Instead, the book was passed carefully between a group of primarily women, who were both entrusted to guard Anne's note, on which more in a second, and encouraged to add their own. In a world with very limited opportunities for women to engage with religion and literature, the simple act of marking this ours and keeping the secret of its most famous user was one small way to generate a sense of community and expression. McCaffrey's thesis supervisor, David Arundel, highlights the importance of the find, saying, "What Kate has discovered has potentially highly significant implications for our understanding of Anne Boleyn and her posthumous reputation. After her fall, there was considerable pressure to erase Anne and to destroy any objects tied to her. The inscriptions in this Book of Hours point to a practiced generational disobedience to this call. The book, which contains Anne's message, 'Remember me when you do pray, that hope doth lead from day to day,' was instead preserved. Was the intent to save this book for Elizabeth? Did she ever hold it? Did she read her mother's message and obey her at her prayers?" I'm going to finish with the disturbing news of the great loss of over £1 million worth of historic objects from the Duke of Norfolk's collection in a robbery at Arundel Castle on the evening of Friday 21st of May 2021. A display cabinet was forced open and raided for its gold and silver contents. The loss includes a number of coronation cups given by the monarch to the Earl Marshal, a position frequently held by a Duke of Norfolk, and also the gold rosary beads that it is believed that Mary Queen of Scots carried with her to her execution at Fotheringay Castle on the 8th of February 1587. Arundel Castle only reopened to visitors on the 18th of May, so police think it likely that the burglars may have visited between then and the 21st, and that their behaviour may have been odd enough to draw attention from fellow visitors. Although the beads are of little intrinsic value because of the metal they contain, they are, of course, like the other looted items, incredibly valuable because of their historical importance. Unsurprisingly, it seems that everyone's worst case scenario here is that the thieves don't know what to do with these items, and so simply melt them down for the relatively minimal gold and silver they contain. Anyone who thinks they may have information about the theft are asked to contact Sussex Police or Crime Stoppers. I will be leaving the relevant contact details in my description box. But here's hoping these items are found and returned safely very soon. So what do you think of the headlines we've looked at today? As always, I'm looking forward to reading your conversations in the comments section underneath this video. Or you can come and find me over on social media. I'll leave links to my Instagram and Twitter in the description box. Follow me there and we can continue this conversation. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, why not share it with some friends? Please also let me know you liked it by hitting the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you think you're subscribed, maybe have a little check now to make sure that YouTube hasn't mysteriously unsubscribed you. While you're there, checking or subscribing, why not hit the bell icon beside the subscribe button so that YouTube tells you when I've next uploaded. I hope you can have a great day, whatever you're doing, and I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.